My name's Nikki Keller. I'm the Digital Projects Manager at England Athletics. The session tonight is going to be an introduction to roster athletics. England Athletics have partnered with Roster. We officially launched the partnership around this time last year, so about December last year. And we've partnered with Roster to provide an online entry and competition management system to the sport. We're aware that there's a lot of different systems out there. We've done quite a lot of research around the different systems that are out there. And we decided to partner with Roster because we wanted to provide a system that covers everything from entry through the competition management to results. We wanted to find a system that was innovative and had different ways to engage with spectators and fans throughout the sport to try and help increase the popularity of track and field athletics. And we've also had really great experience working with the team at Roster in terms of their professionalism, the way that they approach the development of the product, and the way that they respond to organisers, clubs and athletes in terms of their service, and also their understanding of athletics as a sport as well. So the full Roster system is available for all affiliated clubs and organisations to use. It's free of charge for you to sign up to use it. You just get in touch with us and then we can get you set up on the system with Roster. There are transaction fees on the entries that go through the system for the athletes. I'll just say the fee now because people will be asking it later. So it's 5.4% plus 20p per entry, and that goes through Stripe, and that gets taken off automatically, and then the rest is paid to the organizer. So in terms of getting set up, all you would do is contact myself at England Athletics. I'll pop my email in the chat a bit later. And then there's just a set of terms and conditions that you agree with for using the system in terms of how you're going to use it. And then we can get you set up and going. So the plan for this evening is to do, Christian from Roster Athletics is on the call. So he's going to do a little bit of introduction to Roster and the company. And then we've got Vicky Griffiths from England Athletics, who's going to do a quick demo of the system based on her experiences of using it for the England Athletics Championships all throughout this summer. We've also got Nicola Schedule on the call from England Athletics, who many of you will know. And then once we've gone through the demo, we'll do some questions. If you do have questions as we go along, please just drop them into the chat because I'll try and pick those up as we go and answer them as we go through the session. So I will hand over to Christian to start us off.
Thanks a lot. And first of all, thanks a lot for everyone that are joining. Thanks for spending an hour or so or an evening listening to what we have to say about the platform. My name is Christian. I'm a part of Roster Athletics. Actually, also on the call listening is Piotr Dziugiszelski, one of my co-workers in the company. Before I'll leave it to Vicky and do a demonstration of the platform, then I just want to give you a little bit of a background information. First of all, on what we're doing, why we're doing it, and also of the different elements of the platform, because the platform actually consists of 4 different elements. But before doing that, then I'll share my screen and kind of set the scene for what we're doing. As a company, as a group of passionate athletics people, we know that it can be very overwhelming to organize and run competitions. So we set out to change that, and basically everything that we do today is in order to try to make it easier to be an organizer and more fun for everyone to follow those competitions. The platform as it looks today, as said, consists of 4 different elements. So we have the registration portal, admin portal, a field event app, and a consumer app. And if we're starting with number 1, the registration portal, then as Nicola Keller mentioned, then that is where any registrant, that could be a parent, it could be the athlete themselves, or any kind of representative from a club, they can create a registrant account. They can connect all the athletes to that account they want. They can add information on any athlete, meaning records, pictures, information, club affiliations, etc., etc. And from that portal, they can sign up or enter for any competition that has enabled sign up. So that is all done on the registration portal or the entry system. Moving to number 2, the admin portal, and that is what Vicky will spend the majority of the demo on. That is where you as an organizer create your meetings, set up everything about the meeting. You have the schedule, timetabling, you can do all the seatings, and of course you can run the actual meeting. There is a big part of running that meeting that are linked to the consumer app, and I'll come back to that part later. But the first app up here, number 3, the field event app. So that is a dedicated app for officials. So basically enable officials to enter results directly on the field. All results are being pushed live out to the consumer app, but it also follows and facilitates the flow of each individual field event. That leads out here to number 4, the consumer app. Maybe some of you have already downloaded the app. If not, then maybe download the app, because I know that the competition Vicky is using as a demo a little later, that is already live. So that means that any changes Vicky is doing, you can see that in the app. So you can download it in the stores, Roster Athletics. Here in the overview, I've also shown timing systems. As of today, we directly or two-way integrate with both FinishLinks and Timetronics, which means that if you're operating any of those 2 fully finished systems, there is a two-way integration back to the admin portal. So that means that you can set up everything in the admin portal, and then you can push the start list to your photo finish system. You can run the times, and then any times results are being pushed back to the admin portal and pushed out to the consumers following in the app. That is the concept of the platform and the different elements, and then from here I'll leave it to Vicky. I think if you have any questions along the way, then definitely put them in the chat, and we will try to address them either as we go along, or at least pick them up in the end. I'll stop sharing my screen here, Vicky.
Thanks, Christian. Hi, everyone. As Nikki introduced, my name's Vicky Griffiths. I recognise some names on the list, so nice to see you all. I joined England in March, and I've taken over as competition manager from Andy Day. Andy, who many of you will know, has retired. So I'm relatively new to the organisation, and I'm very new to roster. So the team thought it'd be quite a good idea for someone a little bit more novice to talk through the demo, which I'm going to do today. And as Christian explained, Christian is the expert by all means. So if there's any questions that I can't answer, or if there's anything you're unsure of as I'm going along, Christian will support with those questions. So just first and foremost, when I first joined and I heard of the system, I thought, oh my goodness, the thought of a live system is quite daunting. And when I thought the thought of building the system, I thought, oh, I can't make any mistakes. But when you are building the system in the background, it is not live to the public until you make it live. So that's something quite nice, reassuring. So I'm just going to share my screen. Nikki Callett, can you just give me a thumbs up, because I can see you when you can see it? So this is almost the background of the system, and this is where you build the event. So this is one that I prepared earlier in my Blues Peter lingo. And I'm just going to talk you through each of the menus and the background in terms of when you create an event, what it will look like, and the information that you need to input. So down the left-hand side is what you call the menu bar, and this is basically what you will use for everything to do with the event. So for the purpose of today's demo, we're creating an event. and you would just click create event. When you would click that, this would be a blank page, and this is where you input all the information of the event. So as you can see, I'm using the upcoming Indoor Championships as the event. You can save this as you're going along, so you can start it and you can save it, you can come back to it at different times, but the basic general information is all just about the event. So event name, the venue, etc., the season, or just about the event in terms of where it is, what you're doing, some lingo about the event. This will be public facing as well, so this is information that the public will see. You can input your photos. Again, this is what the public will see on the app page, so that when they are registering, you can have your own county logo, event logo, whatever it is in there. It's all completely up to yourself. Contact information, we have set up a specific email address for inquiries to come through, as opposed to directing it to different members of the team. So again, if you've got that in place already, or it can be anyone's email address. The location of the event, pretty self-explanatory in terms of where it is. Again, that is forward facing, so the athletes can see that when they are registering. As you move further down the page, it becomes more specific to the competition, and this is the sections where it will differ per event in terms of the age groups that your event is running and the events that is taking place. So this section here, as I say, gets a bit more specific. Very, very simple to click on any of the bars here that you would call. Click on the age groups of what event it is. For the purpose of this one, it is under 15s and under 17s. They are the only athletes that are able to enter, and that is the age group of what it is. Of course, if it was multiple events, you had under 13s, you just click all of these bars there. So very specific to the event that you're running in terms of the age groups that are there. For the extra section, I might just ask Christian just to jump in on some of these sections, because these are some bits that I'm myself a little bit unsure of in terms of for different events. So the extra section and the time system integration, this is something, Christian, if you could just talk through those two sections, that would be quite useful.
Yeah, of course. So under the extra, you have, of course, different things to add to your competition. I think most of all in the top right corner, you have the privacy. Basically, you can set any competition as public, meaning that everyone can search the competition, everyone can follow and see all the information from the competition. If you want to have a private competition, meaning that you don't want anyone to be able to follow the information and or result in the app, you can set the privacy for private, and then you would add a password. Any consumer that search that competition will be asked to enter the password before getting any access to results, scheduling, etc., etc. However, just be aware that as soon as you have a public competition where you have enabled entries, that also means that it needs to be public. So that's one thing. Another thing here, that is the fantasy game. You basically have the opportunity to enable a fantasy game on any competition that you create. The fantasy game is the gamification of the real live event. So a fantasy game basically means that any user can pick a wrestler based on the actual athletes that are participating in that meeting, and then based on their athletes' performance during that competition, each roster, meaning each fantasy player, will score points in that fantasy game. Lastly, in the extra, there's a HLS live stream. That basically means that if you're live streaming your competition and you have it in an HLS stream URL format, that can be streamed directly from the app. So where Vicky showed that image of or picture from the competition, then in the app that will be switched and changed to the live stream. Under the timing system integration, I don't think I'll go into details, just coming back to the fact that we have an integration directly with Finishlinks and with Timetronics, and all the settings on our side of that integration can be set up here. What you then do is that you download a small program called an agent that we have built. When you open that agent and you have your competition open, together with your photo finish program, then that agent will connect the twos, and then based on whatever you type in here, that's also linked to the information you see on your photo finish system. So that's part of this one. Maybe before coming back, sorry, then we have a pretty detailed support section where you can basically find user guides and support for any of the elements on the platform. So if you want to dive deep into timing system integrations, just search on that on the support section, and then you will have user guides and all the information needed.
Thanks, Christian. And then the final section on this part is just a sponsor. So if your event is sponsored, or you've got any sponsors that you want to mention, you can add them in the final section there. So all pretty self-explanatory. As I mentioned at the start, what I quite liked about this page is that you can come back to it, you can save it, you can create, you can close, you can come away. It's not something that as soon as you create this page, you have to make it live for the people to see. So that was quite reassuring when I first did the event, in that I wasn't going to do anything incorrectly. I could come back and I could make amendments if need be. Just alongside the left-hand side down here, there is a permissions section. And this is where you can add the different users for your event, basically, and you can give them different admin rights. So in terms of what you want that person to do, there's different levels of admin, so they can, they can update or they can just manage. And this is something on an event day. We add our seeding team to this section, our live streaming team to this, with the different levels of management. So it's not something that just one person within your organization can manage. If you want more people to be have permissions, that's something that you can do, which again is quite useful in terms of a wider organization. You can have different people doing different things. Nikki, I don't know if there's any specific questions regarding just the general information page, Nikki Kellett, or people quite happy?
No, there's nothing on that so far.
Brilliant, that's good. I'm going to jump down to the events next, in terms of the events of that competition. So again, quite self-explanatory in terms of what you would be doing. You would just click the boxes of the events that are taking place. So from my event, the combined events, it is a pentathlon and a heptathlon. You just select the events and click them. If you have separate or different events for the male and female, you would have to do male first and then female, and then there is a mixed option as well. So if you've got mixed relays, for example, there's the options to do mixed events also. There's two different sections here in terms of professional and universal. Christian, could you just give a bit of more information on those two sections, just so I don't get that bit wrong?
Yeah, so basically just under the universal, we have collected a lot more different events, especially if you scroll down to the bottom of that list. You will also see now a long list of generic and test events, which are highly used for coaches or internal team or club activities. So it's only a matter of only seeing standard events or all the events that are on the platform.
I know we've got Job on from British Athletics, but something that we are working with Worcester with is building into the para events within this. At the minute, there are not any specific para events, and that is something that we're working with Worcester over the next couple of months to build in. So if you do run para events, it's something that will be built in. You can run it within at the minute as well, but just in case you've spotted, there's no specific para events for some of the events. So as Christian mentioned, all the events are on there. There's a few peculiar events on there as well, which is quite interesting, but they're all within that section there. In terms of your schedule, again, this is what the athletes tend to want to see the most, is when events are taking place and what days. So once you've built your events in, they will appear. You can, I'm just going to move, sorry, the people so I can see. You can click on this section here, add age groups, give them different titles if need be, and this is where you will build your timetable basically. So if you just click on here, it gives you the options of the dates, the time, if they're, or not if, but field events. Very you would click on what is the process, so whether or not it is just 6 rounds to all, or top 3 progress to another number of events. So this is all the section in the back that you would build for the running of the event. Again, it's something, if it does change once it is published, you can come back and amend that. It's not a problem at all. Timings, we all know, change. So even once this is published live, you can come back and make the changes for the schedule. But really, really simple, and something that I found wasn't as complex as sometimes building that Excel spreadsheet and having to make changes to the Excel boxes. It's much cleaner and simpler just to go through and change the schedule on here. I'm going to scroll down a bit further down to the setup. So once you enable the registration, and this means that it then does become public and the public can see the event, although not necessarily live to registrations, you build in whether you've got a cost to the event, whether there's a maximum number of entries. For some of our national competitions, we have an entry standard. So that would be, you know, you have to jump a certain distance or run a certain time to be eligible to compete. At the minute, you can see this event is pending. So that means that no one can enter this event at the minute. It is not opening until the end of this month, end of November. And you within here, this section here, the setup, you create all the background of when the entry deadlines will be. The cost section is in this bit. And you'll see here at the minute, drafts not visible to the public, so they cannot make their entries as of yet. Again, this is something that you can amend as you're going through. And I'm just going to click on the next one. Sorry, I can't see any of this. If you have specific information in terms of documents for your event, so for example, we put our terms of entry so that it is live and can be seen. We upload that there, so you can upload PDF documents. If you have an athlete letter, for example, that you want the athletes to see, you can upload all of this. So you don't have to have a web page and the app separately, or you can just integrate all your documents into one place. And event defaults, this is just what I mentioned before. So for our event, it's £20 per athlete. We have capped it as a maximum number of event athletes within this section. Not many organisations would do that, but you can have the option to do it. If it's a certain event where the timetable will only allow for an X amount of athletes, you can make that option in there. If you do have a qualifying standard that the athletes have to achieve, you can select this option down here, which you have to approve the athletes. So for some of our events where there isn't qualifying standard, we have to manually approve them. So it means that the athletes cannot pay for the event until their qualification or their entry has been approved. So the option is down there to manually approve or to turn that one off. So again, something that you can do at any stage before making it live. So also on that one there, I'm just going to add, go back to meeting options. Qualification in terms of season's best or personal best. So if there is a qualification there, you would just, whether or not it was by season's best or personal best. This bit here, Nikki or Christian, could you just talk through the VAT, whether or not that is something that general people would have to do, or in terms of if there was a cost to the event?
Yeah, so basically, first of all, the currency, the fees, and the VAT, that is set up when you create the connection from your organization to your Stripe account. You have the opportunity to enable or disable VAT, basically based on the setup of your organization, whether that's accept or not accept. The total fee, that was what Nikki Kellett mentioned in the beginning, that is set and fixed. So that is the 0.20 pence plus 5.4%. Those 4.5%, they basically cover the credit card transaction fee that goes to Stripe. It covers a fee to England Athletics, and it covers a fee to us, meaning the platform. So that is all within that charge.
Thank you, Christian. I'm just actually going to jump to another event just so I can show you what it looks like when there is a qualification or when the athletes do. So for our Open under 17, under 15, under 20 championships, as I mentioned, there is a qualifying standard that they have to achieve. So I have to, or the team have to, approve all their events. So you will see there that the athletes remain as pending until their event, their entry is accepted. And then once we accept the event, they're able to make their payments. So once an athlete has made their payments, you can see nice and clearly, start list and the payment complete. So again, you have the option of doing that. For some of our events, we don't have the qualifying standards. So I'll use another example. the senior combined events. There's no qualifying for this one, so the athletes will just register and make their payment straight away, or as and when they're able to do so. And that just shows, this is for me now, I can go in and I can see how many athletes have entered. They input their details in terms of their personal bests, etc. And then they appear on the start list further along the line, which I'll show you a bit later on. So for me, it's quite nice to go in. I can monitor when there is a deadline. I can monitor how many entries have come in, whether or not we need to give it another push. For this event specific, there is a maximum number of entries. So again, it's just a nice clean way in terms of checking the entries and being able to promote the entries if need be to get more to enter. I'm just going to jump back to the other event. Is there any questions so far, Nikki, or anything that I need to ask?
No, most of them have been answered via the chat so far.
Perfect. So that is the majority of the build. So once you want to make your event live, you again just go into the meeting options. So here you'll see there's a deadline, a registration deadline when they need to enter. Once I was create, click this box and say publish, publicly visitable, and make the events open. That means it is open for the entries. So once I click this box here and press open, that means that athletes can make their entries. Currently, at the minute, they can see all the information within the event. So I'm just going to jump back to the page here. Might just be helpful for me to just move that one out of the way, just to show what it looks like to the public at the minute without being live. Quite useful to see. So this is the event we've just spoke to. As you can see, all that general information that we input on that very first page is here. You can see at the minute it's not open. So that's what I mentioned before. The registration is not open. This is the blurb about the event. Just put critical information in there that sometimes gets sent through to the questions beforehand. The events that we created are visible, so that you can see the events, the age groups, the price of the event, and the number of participants and the day of which that event is happening. Once the athletes come through, this would where the start list would be shown. So the participant section is where once it's open, the athletes can see the start list. So before the event, you don't have to publish those separately on a website, or you don't have to print them and send them out to people. They can be visual there. So that is what this event looks like at the moment. As soon as I press create and open the event, the athletes will be able to make their registrations. I'm going to jump back. So that is basically the setup of the event in the background. As I mentioned at the start, for me, I found it a bit daunting to start with, but it is a very simple process. What you can do, and what I find really useful for multiple events, is you can create the events in advance and not make them live or not make them visible at all. So that if you've got lots of events and you've got a bit of quieter time down in the downtime season, you can create those events and just make them live as and when the entry opening dates approach. But yeah, it's something that I've found quite easy to do in the background in terms of creating the event. The running of the event, I'm going to put my hand on my heart and say at the minute, I'm not massively familiar with the actual running on the day. Nikki Keller within our team has been doing more so of that one. We do have a seeding team who will come in and do the seeding. And I think Christian's going to just talk us through the input of when the athlete or when the scores come through. But in terms of the build, something that I found really enjoyable to do, and something that I think has been made the running of our events much simpler, cleaner, and just more public and more accessible for the athletes. We get lots of questions come through, and it's just easier to direct them to the roster so that they can see the start list, for example. We don't publish heats prior to the event because we do CDARs, but once you have created the heats, you can publish the heats, and that would appear on the app also. Christian, do you want to talk through once the result is in? If I stop sharing.
Yeah, I'll maybe just keep sharing this one, because maybe if let us jump to that to the app, then, meaning the field event apps, because when you talk about getting results in. So right now, Vicky has set everything up. Competition is ready. Entry system entries are open. So now let's imagine that all entries has come in, and she's basically ready to run that competition. Then if Wiki goes to any of the start lists or any of the results, right now this competition is empty, meaning that there are no athletes. Once that there are athletes, then on the results, there are 3 ways of getting results into the system. So either they can be typed in manually right here on the web admin. As soon as they're typed in, results will be public available in the app and everyone can see them. That's one way of getting in results. The second way is, of course, if you have the integration with your footer finish, then as soon as results are taken in the whatever footer finish system that you use, results are then being pushed and they go back to the system. The third way of getting results, and that is from that third element of the platform, meaning the field event app. And I think, Vicky, if I can share my screen, then at least I can show you how that looks like. Maybe 1 second. Okay, Vicky, maybe you can go back because I need to log in with an iPad. In between, Nikki, I don't know if there's any more questions.
Yeah, there has been a question around cross-country relays and whether the system can work for that.
Yeah, a very good question. And we have just launched as an add-on, basically an app-based timing system. We call it manual timing. And that means that if you have any smaller road races, cross-country, so basically any kind of race that are done not on the track, but outside, then now that is dedicated within that field event app. So you can set up the race exactly as Vicky showed here. You can go to the field event app. You can activate that manual timing, which basically sets off a clock or timing. And then the idea is that with 2 different devices, you will have one device at the finish line and a second device to get in all the orders. So what you basically do is that one guy is standing at the finish line, typing in any beep number that are crossing the finish line. Any beep number that are typed in, that will basically be a hand stop time on that specific time. But of course, you will not manage to type in all of them. So the second guy that is standing behind the finish line, he's entering all the beep order. So basically, he's taking all orders in, or all beeps in, and any beeps that are in between times where we don't have the exact time on the finish line will then be distributed based on the beep order. So you basically have finish time result and you have a beep order, and then based on those 2 devices, they are merged and results are coming into the platform and are also being pushed out to the app. So that is out now, and that is dedicated especially for smaller road races cross country, etc. I don't know if there's any more questions, then I'll just log in with my iPad while you're going through those.
I don't think there's been any more in the chat, but if there's any that anybody wants to just drop in now, just while we've got a bit of time to put questions in.
What I'll just do, Nikki, is I'll just jump back to just an event that has happened, and I can just show what results might look like once they're in terms of the back of the system.
Yeah, so you'll notice that the start list and the results screens are quite similar. So from the start list page, this is where you would seed your events as well. So the system's got a number of different seeding methods and lane allocations already built into the system. So once you've got all of your athletes in there, then you can go through to the seeding screen and you can choose the seeding method that you want to use and the lane allocation, and that will all be done automatically. You've also then got quite a lot of flexibility to be able to manually move athletes between heats if you need to, and also block out certain lanes or only choose to use certain lanes if you've got a lane out of use or anything like that. So the seeding side of it is all quite flexible.
Check-in would be for on the day registration, so you can have, providing you've got internet connection, iPads at your registration or laptops, and you can check the athletes directly on the check them in when they come to register, and then that, as Nikki mentioned, goes straight through to the seeding team to let them know they've arrived and they can be seeded. So cuts out quite a lot of the admin in terms of paperwork, and it's just nice and clean then and can go straight across to the seeding team as soon as the athletes check in.
Are you set up now, Christian?
I'm set up, so if I can share my screen. I hope you can all see my screen. So basically this is just an iPad screen, and that links to that third element, meaning the Field Event app. It's up here in the top, in the middle on the Turkish color. And that is the app that are dedicated for any officials to enter results directly from the field. If I enter that, then I will log into this app with the exact same credentials as Vicky has logged in to the admin portal. I will have access to the exact same meetings. I will have the same permissions as I have on the admin side or the website. For a demonstration here, I'll go to another test meeting that has entered results, so you can just see how it works. So I'll take my test meeting in the top, and now you can see the different events that are part of this meeting. If we go down to the high jump for women at the bottom, then in the left side, you will now see all the participants. What we have tried to do with the Field Event app is basically to facilitate the flow of any field events. So in this case, before the high jump starts, then if I click the three dots above the beep or name bar, then I can edit height or set height progressions. In this case, let's say that we start at 150 and I want to add multiple heights. I click the check mark and now you can see the different heights, or the height progression for the high jump has been set. Clicking back on the three dots, I can also set starting heights on individual level for each of the participants. So let's just set different starting heights for the purpose here. So they are set, and now again above the participants in the left side, you can now see the different starting heights. So Amy is starting at 150, Amelia is starting at 155, etc. In the left bottom corner, basically the app will now follow the flow of the competition. So first jumper, that's Amy, she starts at 150. If she clears, then we go up to 155, but the flow is still based on the order, and Amelia is in jumping order before Amy, so she will go first on 155. She clears. Up jumper next is then Amy. She also clears. Then the height goes up to 160, and Adelaide is the first in the jumping order for 160, so she starts at 160. She clears, etc., etc. So in the left bottom corner, depending on how that event has been set up, it continuously support the flow. That goes for all of the field events. And if you remember Vicky on the schedule, she could set up the specific flow for any individual field events, meaning how many attempts will there be re-ranking after third attempt? Will there be no re-ranking? Will it only be 3 attempts, 6 attempts? And based on whatever is set in the admin, the app will facilitate that. So that was just to show you how that app works, and it works for basically any events. You can also type in results for any track events, but mostly used for all the field events. It's also within the field event app that you would do the manual timing. So basically being able to time any race. Yeah, I'll stop sharing this one.
Christian, we've just had a question about how the field events look to spectators using the app. So I don't know if while you've got your iPad hooked up, you could just show how that looks in the spectator app for those that are following.
Yeah, let me show. I hope you can see my screen again. So back to the iPad, and then if you see the consumer app, then this is how it looks when you log in. You will have a list of all featured competitions, but you can also search for any competition in the event that we are looking at today. That was the under 17 and under 15 indoor combined event championship. So on the first tab, you'll have all the details. That means you'll basically have the scheduling. You can go into any of the individual events. In this case, there are no start lists, so I'll be notified that there are no start lists available yet. If you slide to the left, you will have the meeting feed. Right now, there are no messages, but Vicky could write messages, she could upload pictures, she could utilize YouTube for any live streaming or any videos, and any spectator following can also write messages under the feed. You also have the sponsor tab. If we then go back to the details, then as soon as any event goes live, based on the event start time, that will be highlighted in yellow, and you will see that it's live. As soon as all results are in and the organizer has confirmed final results, meaning set results as finished, they will turn back white, and then you will have a blue check mark in the right hand side of any event. So that should be nice and easy to follow along any competition. Yeah.
Thanks, Christian. Mike, do you want to ask a further question around the cross-country relays?
Yeah, hi everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Brilliant. So yeah, Christian, I appreciate if you're not sort of familiar with the British culture of endurance relays, that road relays and cross-country relays, some of this might seem a little bit foreign to you. And I want to defer also to Mick Bromelo, as Mick is the real expert. He's written a lot of software that can actually process lots of the results. But it's sort of a two-pronged question, because I'm both a team manager and I'm a race organizer. So with my team manager hat on, for one of the biggest clubs in the country on the endurance side, I make entries into a variety of championship races every year. And there are 3 portals that I use. One of them is brilliant, one of them's all right, one of them is very difficult to use. And if you're effectively going to be bringing a 4th onto the market, what will you do to make sure that it really helps the team manager user experience? Because otherwise we'll just be cursing it. And what is really good about the best one, and weirdly the best one from my point of view as a team manager, is technologically the most basic. It's an HTML interface. It's a Graham Fest, it's at Race Results, but it simply gives me a list of my athletes on the left, directly downloaded from Trinity, and I can just click select, and put them all over if they're affiliated. And that is a really easy user interface for me as a team manager. Some of the others are much more difficult. And specifically going back to relay scoring, the way it works at the end of a relay is at the end of each leg, the recorders and timekeepers take a list of the runners coming in at the end of each leg, and then effectively you input the end of leg 1, the end of leg 2, and then it scores it into a relay as you go. So this might be 6 times 5 kilometers, something like that. And Mick Bromelo, and Mick might want to say something now as well, he actually devised a way of using barcode scanners on numbers. So effectively you download a little data file that's got a list of all the numbers finishing. So you don't have to type in numbers. You just use a barcode scanner like you find in a local supermarket that will then give you the list of your numbers finishing. And then you can use a downloadable stopwatch to give a list of times in. So you're getting your data capture from 2 USB enabled devices that just feed in a data set after each race. And it's stuff like that that could make this a winner if it was really well integrated. But if it wasn't, then we'd probably stick with doing it in Excel ourselves. I don't know if Mick's got anything to add to that.
Okay, I've been using scanners for quite a while now for cross-country and road races, and I can direct results from scanners directly into a spreadsheet. So I suspect it would be very easy to integrate it into the roster system just using the Field app, but uploading a scanner results, which is a sort of string of numbers, and then using those for the road race or cross-country results.
Thanks a lot for all the input, and I'll try to answer the best I can, and please just jump in if I'm not answering the question. So first of all, I totally agree. If we don't make it intuitive and easy to use, then nobody will use it. So that's what I mean. That's kind of, we have to nail that one. Second part is, do we facilitate all the needs that you have today? No, we don't do that. I mean, there are like cross-country team competition scoring and a lot of elements that are not integrated into the platform as of today. But what we are trying to do is to go into a dialogue with, and I would really love to jump or dive into this in details on a later stage, but trying to find out what is actually needed from all the different stakeholders. So that could be with your team manager cap on, but it could also be from the organizer point of view, from the county, from all the different stakeholders, and then try to come up with the best possible solutions. And make, as you're saying, then it's not necessarily really complicated, but if we don't nail it in terms of ease of use for the users, then it doesn't really matter. Where we are today, when we talk about e.g. team competitions or the manager functionalities, then we have started a dialogue with the different leagues to understand what is actually needed in the e.g. league structure, both from the organizer, from the leagues, from the team managers, from the counties and regions, and that will also be our approach for this. So I don't know, Mike, if you need some more specifics right now, or
not necessarily, but I think for your product to be useful for the road relays and the cross-country relays, and there aren't a huge number, but they are quite big events and they are quite important for the endurance side of the sport. You'd need to make sure that your product was as good or better than the best product currently out there, because otherwise us as team managers would be getting rather upset if we were being forced onto an inferior product to the one out there, which ironically technologically is the most basic. It's an HTML interface, but it works really well for the team managers, I think.
And definitely, I don't think anyone will be forced to anything, but it's also in our interest to build the best possible product. So
yeah, I guess the thing is that if race organisers start using it because it's in their interests, the team managers feel they've been forced to something because the team managers want the clubs want to take part in the competition. So that's the only thing there.
Okay, got it. But definitely, if you and or anybody else have time to dive into this on a separate call, then I think we should do it. Just mentioning and going back to the leagues, then at least the leagues has been very, very upfront on everything from the team manager's point of view and really highlighted what is important for the team managers because they are in direct contact with with whatever system is used all the time. So really good input. Thanks.
What you have is a business model for open meetings, county championships, national championships, but the business model for league athletics or league cross country is that people don't pay a fee. Team managers go to a portal, enter their athletes, and then they use those declarations to produce results. Now, is there going to be a different business model where you can pay, say, a fee up front to use the portal system, for example, for a cross-country league?
That's something we're just discussing at the moment, Mick, as part of the discussions around developments for leagues. So that will come out of those discussions as we go through to work out what the business model might be for that. Okay,
but I've got experience of, I do road race results, I set up the SAL results system, I do cross-country league results. You need to talk to people like me, I think, and I'm surprised that you haven't.
Okay, no problem. We'll happily set up a follow-up call after this, if you're happy to input.
Okay.
Thanks very much. There's a question about the declaration needed for athletes for entering track and field. I'm guessing that's linked to the anti-doping statement. So currently at the moment, what we've done for the England Athletics Champs is we've added the statement into our entry terms and conditions, which everybody has to agree to when they enter the event. And then we'll be looking at a further development on that for the entry system within a time frame, but as a immediate solution, we've added it into the entry terms and conditions that people agree to when they enter the event. If anybody's got any more questions, just for the last few minutes before we wrap up then. Thanks everybody for your input this evening. It's been really useful, some really good suggestions and lots of useful input around additional features that we could look to build into the system.
Nikki, I didn't mention post-event, just the link to Power of 10, so that the results can just be ported straight to Power of 10, can't they? It's a really easy function that we can just send them across.
Yeah, so we're still waiting for an API integration with Power of 10, but we have got a specific results CSV export in the system, which you can just download and send straight to Power of 10. And that's been developed with Power of 10 to make sure that it meets their kind of requirements in terms of getting results into Power of 10 as quickly and easily as possible.
I've just highlighted it there, Nick. Sorry, I forgot to mention that before.
No problem. Okay, so we're coming up to the hour mark now, so I'm going to wrap it up this evening unless there's anything else that anybody wants to jump in with last minute. Just to say a big thank you to everyone for giving up your time this evening to join us. If you do think of any additional questions or follow-up suggestions that you want to send through, please do send them through to my email address that was added into the chat earlier. It's nkellett, KELLETT @englandathletics.org. Feel free to just send me through anything if you think of anything after the call.